This conference will now be recorded.
Do you see? Can you do you see? Well, are you getting a screen feed on your cell phone? I mean, can you see your screen? Oh, never mind. I'm just wondering.
It says no screens or cameras are being shared.
Ah, okay, that might change later. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
Okay.
Yeah, what I'm doing right now is sharing this Google Doc with everybody. I can get all the emails. So this is the kind of the. Oh, Brian, maybe do you have anything planned, at least for the beginning?
No, I was just going to ask you maybe if you could bring everybody through the first a very high level scan agenda, which is just to mention the things that we're doing, the cluster is doing, and then maybe to start off with the first item of the agenda, which is on the carbon management session, and maybe bringing us through the high level design of the carbon management session.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll hold off sharing this document. I'll just share my screen, and so you can all see it. And later on, you can I'll share it, and then you can also work on it. So the overall, I guess the idea for the session for this carbon management session is that we will have this graphical representation of the main ideas, the main concepts of the subject of the session and also the speaker's materials. Right? So the idea is that we will start off with a very high level, I don't know, in my mind, it's like maybe 5 nodes kind of graph. And then as each speaker presents the material, we will show the next version with more populated graph incorporating that speaker's material until we have all 3 speakers' material. So at the end, before we go off into the breakout sessions, we should have a more fleshed out, more populated graph, maybe on the order of 40 nodes, I think is what we had talked about last time. So that's the idea. We'll have this kind of an increasingly dense, although not too dense, graph that the participants can see it being built as the materials are presented. So this was Dan's idea of not losing anybody, right off the bat, if we just do that. So let me just show my.
Hey Bill, just a comment. I think the target number of nodes, you mentioned 40. The target number of nodes at the end of all 3 presenters at the time then when the presenters handed off to our breakout groups, I think we should target it to be actually a lot less than 40, given what we discussed in the past. Maybe, like even no more than 20, at the very most 22, 23, 24, around that number.
Okay.
And then for those of you who have not heard, or maybe this is fresh for you, a piece of news for you, once we have that graph, that if you want to call it a concept map or concept node, concept map or concept graph, whatever you want to call it, but once we have that 20 to 20 something concept graph, that marks the end of the formalized presentations, and then we hand it off into breakout groups, where each of the breakout groups will get that final graph, and each of the breakout groups will get a chance to add to their own copy of that graph. So imagine it's a PowerPoint, Google slide, slide where you have one slide with that graph with maybe 20 nodes. Each of the breakout groups gets a copy of that same graph in their own. It's in the same slide deck, but each of them picks a particular slide in the slide deck that shows that same graph, and the breakout groups will all get to each work on their own little slide. So that's the idea.
Yeah, so if we're aiming for 2025, so if I, at the very high level, say start with 5, right? Just the very high level concepts, actually corresponding to the key input documents. And then that will work out to be, say, 5 additional one per speaker on average. So you end up with 20, leaving 5 for kids in reserve. And then, as each group goes off into their breakouts, then they'll have that to start with, and then they can add their own additional material. By the way, I'm looking for the sharing thing. I'm not finding that here today.
Are you a presenter? Do you have presentation rights, privileges?
Usually it's down the bottom here.
I have been made a presenter, but maybe it's you should be.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I have to be made the presenter first. Okay, got it. Let's see where. So are you seeing my?
Yep, we're seeing your screen.
Okay. I think I'm getting mixed up with the other remote software where you have to click twice. Okay. So anyways, so this is the document I was trying to share with everybody. So Brian has already added some good comments there. I haven't done anything with what you put down here, Brian. So this is what I originally initially sent to Brian. So this is the step before I'll create that kind of 5-node-ish graph that will be at the beginning of the session. Right. So the input documents, the 4 main ones are the Biden climate plan, and there's a link to each of these, in here. The Secretary of Energy, what is the AP stand for? I forgot. Task force report.
I don't remember either. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's Secretary of Energy that tasked this group to come up with this report. And then climate 21.
Report.
And
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, I don't actually have access to see those documents. So if those are documents that people are going to need to be able to read or see.
Right. Yeah, so I was trying to add the emails just at the beginning of this meeting. So I haven't gotten to that yet to share with everybody. So that's why I was just showing everybody this, and I will add that as I get a chance, so you can all work on it. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So these are the 4 Biden climate plan, the Secretary of Energy something task force report, climate 21, and specifically the USDA memo, and then the SDG 2 Zero Hunger, which is just their web page with a very short paragraph describing the goal number 2. So then for each of these, okay, let me go back here. So each of these I just read through and pulled out what I thought was the relevant to our session, and Brian has already added additional stuff. So this is definitely not a comprehensive extraction of relevant material, just what appeared to me to be the most relevant as I was reading it. And same thing with climate 21. So this is some of the material, and the Biden. This is SDG task 2.4. Go to task 2.4. and then the Biden climate plan. Right? So the idea then is with these 4 extraction of material from these inputs, then a simple 5-node graph can be drawn with very high-level relationships. For example, let me go back here. So this Secretary of Energy Task Force report could be the inform the Biden climate plan, the climate 21. Both of these will be informing the climate plan, right? The Secretary of Energy, the SEAB probably more directly than climate 21, maybe a little bit less so. And then all of them together, how would they relate to SDG goal number 2? I mean, there are other goals and other tasks that we also are interested in, but for now, we're just focusing on goal number 2 and task 2.4, which has the that particular language in terms of sustainable food production and so on.
So, Bill, and in fact, could you click back on the SDG 2 that you were there at? Mm-hmm. In fact, right off the bat, you know, I mean, for the very, very high level concept map, you can already see from that statement there in task 2.4 that agricultural practices, the concept and the term there is probably going to be applicable to, you know, the task force, but definitely to climate 21, because climate 21 does talk about agricultural practices via conservation programs that, you know, can be implemented. Right? So right off the bat there, you have already one concept, agricultural practices, and that word, that concept nicely maps to actually, I mean, we kind of know this because we've kind of worked on it, but that maps to some of the maps to some of the ontology terms. At least one of them is in the agronomy ontology. Agronomy ontology has the term agricultural. It may even be agricultural practices. Anyway, just to say that right off the bat, mm-hmm. that short statement 2.4 there already has a kind of a good hint as to what relevant concepts may form your initial very high level concept map.
Yeah, there's a lot of relationships that even at this high level you can really see. Like, so that's one. And maintain ecosystems. It's either Climate 21 or the SEAB report, where it talks about these measures that that all these documents are promoting. Are not necessarily all positive in terms of its effect on the ecosystem. So this one here, maintaining ecosystems, is related to that idea also, that we have to be careful about side effects as you implement these carbon management measures.
Yep.
Okay. So again, I will share all these documents, all 5 of these, and you can all go at it. So, but right now, so after these 4 on top, which I just linked to these other 4 documents, Google documents, then I just pull everything, compile all the key bullets from each of these here, and from these, and together with comments that you all will have, I'll just come up with a very high level initial graph from which we can start the session with.
Yeah, and we thought, at least for this meeting, it's important to have folks like Todd Walter. Todd, so in case the folks on the line, if you don't know Todd, Todd is one of our invited speakers, and so Todd is the first speaker immediately after Bill introduces the session, and so which is why we specifically invited both actually Todd and Daniel. Dan Foucault is also on the line, because Todd's talk will build off the high-level concept graph that Bill introduces, and wherever Todd ends up, Todd is going to add a few other additional notes to Bill's graph, right? And then when the next speaker after Todd comes on, who's this guy by the name of Steele Lawrence from the Farmers Bureaus Network. He's a private sector guy. So Steele will do the same thing. At the end of the talk, Steele will add a couple of notes to that graph and so on and so forth. And our last speaker, Lindsay Barr, who many of you know now, she will do the same thing. But Lindsay will focus on SDG. So we're kind of progressing from kind of national to global scales in that order. Todd, Steele, and then Lindsay Barbery.
So Brian, is the idea that we will be doing what you just said, right, ahead of time, right? It's not going to be in real time.
Yeah, it's going to be ahead of time. So I guess the thing that like Todd needs to be prepared to do once you have the high-level concept graph is that you need to hand it over to Todd sometime this week, right. and then Todd, you need to add in your however many. I think it's going to be not too many. I mean, probably maximum of 5, but 5 concepts, and then Todd, you're going to hand it over to Steele, and then so Steele again in advance of the session next week. Steele has to add in whatever he wants to add in.
Yeah, that's great. Just tell me where I'm starting at and where I need to end at. This is Todd.
Okay.
Yeah, so sometime this week I'll send that initial graph to you, Todd, and then you can just add another, 5 or 6 or whatever number additional notes to the initial one.
Yeah, and Todd, we have quite a bit of time on the call today because the other items are on the agenda. So there are 3 items on the agenda, right? One is we're going to talk about the carbon management session. The other 2 items are just a very quick mention. I'm just going to very quickly say there's another session at the ESIP winter meeting. It's a little bit about the innards of the US government and where science is found in those innards, right? That's the second item on the agenda. The third item on the agenda is a quick FYI on another ESIP cluster that has invited us to present on the work with the knowledge graphs. So those 2 items 2 and 3 will not take too much time. I think they're going to take maybe 3 minutes each at the most. So we have quite a bit of time to talk about the carbon management session now to get feedback from everybody, as well as to discuss what you might if you have any questions for Bill and I, where we're trying to kind of direct our cluster's energies towards. That's totally up for discussion right now if you want.
I'm still in listening mode, trying to figure out the big picture and figure out where my piece fits in. As soon as I understand that, I'm up and running. But this is so huge, and my part's so small. I'm trying to just still get a sense of exactly where I fit in.
Okay, let me offer a kind of perspective. So I think what would be useful if you could focus in. So part of Bill's graph, in fact, I think it may already be on the screen. I think Bill, could you scroll up a little bit onto Climate 21? Oh, sorry, scroll down. Sorry, I have the wrong direction. Huh? Yeah, scroll Climate 21. Blah. There you go. So Todd, if you look at this, where Bill's screen is showing, one of the keywords there and key concepts is the prioritizing climate smart practices in the implementation of Farm Bill conservation programs. So if you ignore specifically Farm Bill, I mean, if you are comfortable with talking anything about, you know, the direction that the Farm Bill has been trying to push us towards in terms of, as we previously discussed on a previous call, on another call, things like conservation reserve program, conservation stewardship program, you know, blah blah blah. If you're comfortable talking about that, that's entirely game. But if you could like talk about maybe even farming practices, any tillage practices that, you know, help sequester carbon. But then I think it'll be interesting to hear your reflection in terms of your expertise about yeah, writ large, maybe tillage, conservation tillage practices are good, you know, as well as controlling the amount of moisture in the soil by using agricultural tiles underneath the fields. But you know, in relation to your expertise, then it might be interesting for the audience to hear about other controls on soil carbon on soil carbon sequestration, soil moisture being one of them, and that's where we get into your expertise. So,
Brian,
so I think,
Brian, do you mind if I interrupt there for just
Sure.
a second? Because that's adding slightly, and that's deviating slightly from what was discussed before, in which Todd would be introducing why, how this actually applies within management, specifically within the concept of the different scenarios where a farmer might take out a certain portion of land
right.
to be able to claim some sort of credit, where that portion of the land is inversely related to the actual desires of what the policy is for. So
Yep.
I would suggest that
Let's do that.
kind of move away from tiles and everything that you were discussing there and go back to the original concept, which Todd would be saying, how might this type of action inversely or possibly actually be for the positive, but actually accumulate in a negative as far as, say, carbon or nitrogen.
Yeah, I think that,
Okay.
that sounds great. Todd, what do you
Yeah,
think?
no, if this is Todd again, if I can just jump in quickly, Dan, I think that's great. And this is my presentation. It sounds like it should be pretty high level. We don't want to look at graphs of data and stuff. We want to see like how do the policies and practices intertwine to potentially maximize carbon sequestration and mitigate climate change. Is that
Yep.
kind of where my talk should go?
Yeah, if you can steer in that direction, that'll be great.
Okay, great. So I don't want to get nitty-gritties. I want to kind of like look policy management.
Okay.
And then like here's way and I'm going to be fairly regionally constrained just because I haven't done any work in the Midwest recently. So, but
No, that's great.
it's okay. I think the principles should still apply.
Yeah, in fact, because I think it's kind of nice because I was hoping to be able to weave the story that, you know, you're going to start off very specifically on a particular part of the U.S. that you know well, right? Because it helps to start off very specific. Otherwise, people get kind of lost if it's, you know, you're talking about global practices, but it doesn't quite apply. But so yeah.
And sorry, Bill. Am I looking at like a 10-minute period, a 5-minute period, 20-minute? What's my? I'm just trying to get a scope here.
Yeah, Bill, what was it like?
I think we had
10 and 2, right?
it was 10.
Perfect.
Yeah, 10 and 2 or 10 and 3 or for Q&A, something like that.
Okay, 10 minutes is perfect. I can do that.
Right. That is perfect. Yeah, and so if Todd, if you're going to kind of focus on a very specific part of the U.S., then Steele Lorenz, the next speaker, I think because the programs that his company runs cover the whole US, and they cover like thousands of farm operators across the US. So Steel can do something slightly more kind of US across the landscape kind of thing. That'd be
Okay,
great.
if I get you guys some a set of like no more than 10 slides to you by the end of the week with some narration at the bottom, can you provide feedback so we can make sure this is honed in to the overall picture well?
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah,
then
that would be good.
I was just going to add, Todd, I would suggest you could probably actually talk towards even just the process, and if you use the Buchanan paper, where are areas that are more likely to be saturation excess.
Sure, carbon sinks.
What you're talking about actually covers the entire United States, but more so in other areas.
Oh, okay. So you're thinking of the Buchanan paper that we were co-authors on that looked at the whole United States. Sure, I can bring that in. I'll start out locally and show how it actually encompasses the whole United States. Perfect. But I will, I'll try and put together a cogent 10-minute presentation that looks at land management, or maybe one example of land management and how it couples with the different policies that are already in place. We just need to kind of reimagine them a tiny bit or re-implement them a little bit, and then how that dovetails into climate change mitigation. Good. I think is that kind of where am I on task here?
Yep.
That's what I want to get some.
Bueno.
Okay, I want to use some slides by the end of the week so you can give feedback and make sure I'm on target.
Okay.
And if you can make sure there's that slide with the manure sitting in the big old bottle of water.
Oh yeah, everybody loves that one. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, actually, talking, it so occurred to me that I said earlier that I was going to send you the graph with the 5 nodes sometime this week, but given this well, my document. Yeah, and given this document, which I'll share with you, so as you are already looking at this, you can kind of see where your things might connect to the material here. So Brian gave an example of this thing over here. If you go through, you can kind of get an idea of where the high level is and where your material will fit in and connect.
Yeah, and I don't know how nuanced we want to get, but I mean, layer on top of this is ag land being converted into green energy, either wind farms or solar panels or whatever it is. And I don't know how much we want to get into the weeds of that, but there may be some opportunities to dovetail some of this stuff into what may be future farm bill policies. I don't know. I think about how much we want to be forward thinking.
Yeah, and that I'm just thinking now, with the other session that Brian mentioned related to policy, which one of the aims of that is to for people who are interested in how their research connects with policy or can influence policy. So this might be related to that session what you just talked about.
And definitely, Bill and I are hoping to, so we have monthly meetings, right? After this session next week. So we're actually looking for topics for each of the monthly meetings. And definitely we should put into the queue these other topics if people are interested.
Let's see. So I'm showing this again. I think I showed this last time. So this is the allocation of minutes. And so one thing I changed is it was for this row number 8 here, that was going to be an additional breakout session for people to introduce each other to each other, as well as looking at an example of a graph that we will be showing. But then subsequently, we decided to do what we had just gone through, which is show the initial version and then incrementally populated with subsequent speakers material. So we won't have that breakout session, which probably will take too long anyways. So right now I have allocated total 8 minutes in the beginning, which I'll see whether that's realistic or not. Covering all the intro background as well as going through the initial graph, and then allocated 15 minutes, 12 plus 3 Q&A for each of the 3 speakers. But if any of you, finishes earlier, that will just save those minutes for the breakout group session later. And then Brian, in between the 3 speakers in the breakout sessions, will present kind of the final version of the graph before everybody takes their copy of it to the breakout room and work on, work on it within their group. Okay, so this won't be 40 notes anymore. There'll be like 25 notes. And then the breakout group right now is 25 minutes, which is still not a lot, but that's what we have. And then we'll save 10 minutes at the end to summarize and also, very importantly, what comes next and the cluster plan for the entire year. So that's what it is right now, 91 minutes, if everything goes well. So yeah. Any comments on this schedule? Is it
That looks great.
more or less realistic?
Yeah, I'm going to try and run short and cogent. This is Todd again. Just because I think that the things you guys are doing are so awesome that I want to kind of leave time so people can see how my small piece fits into this big framework.
Okay. Yeah, so the general the sequence here goes from kind of small scale, in a sense, a small area, right? To kind of global at the end with SDGs, which still be more, I guess, regional. So that's kind of the general ordering of the material.
And by the way, a quick comment on Bill, my 3 minutes there. So I'm just gonna take the 3 minutes to summarize. After Lindsay presents her additions to the graph, right, to the concept graph, I'm just gonna use that as an opportunity, and Lindsay shouldn't change slides. She should just have that last slide, that she's displaying there. And then I'm just going to take the opportunity to kind of summarize what everybody has heard for the past 45 minutes, and then give instructions to the participants that they're going to have to, we're not figuring out how they're going to, never mind. I'm just making instructions to the participants that they will be broken up into small subgroups of, I don't know, X persons, which we have not determined yet, but that they should use that final graph to add to that graph their own ideas about what their expertise are, or what they would like to see in the future ACC meetings, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we would like them to come back with, because it is a group activities, to what is it that they want to, for the group to do, for the rest of the year, coming out of this session.
Okay.
So I just added here, so the 15 minutes will be 12 minutes, more or less, for the actual presentation, then 3 Q&A plus a quick update on the graph given the additional material.
Any questions or comments from Everybody online?
Will it be obvious how to update the graph, or is that something we say verbally and somebody else is doing that remotely?
Oh no, we will actually, well, Bill will give you the slide, the Google slide. So, it's going to be one of those things where the slide is comprised of, like little squares or circles or whatever, graphical elements on the slide. So essentially, you just need to copy and paste a couple of new square or circle, whichever one, whichever shape Bill uses, and then the graph, in addition to the squares or circle, will have arrows, probably with a label on the arrow, a label on the edge. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what bills will look like.
The labels, I think, is the I don't know what's the word, like I mean the nodes, or the square or the rectangle, those are easy, right? It's whatever concept you have, but then it's connecting. And what arrows themselves should be fairly straightforward, kind of where you think this additional node relates to. But then what is that relationship? I think is the slightly harder thing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we'll be limited to high level relationships. So in the case of the SCAB report, I mean, the only thing I have in mind right now is that informs the Biden climate plan,
Right.
something like that. Right? It's similar with Climate 21. And maybe the Biden climate plan will contribute to the SDG goal number 2. It'll be very high level, right, at this point. And similarly, I think with all the speakers' material, how they relate to the initial graph is also going to be kind of limited in that regard.
Yeah, the relationships could be things like effects, like if you have a conservation program which affects the rate of carbon sequestration, your relationship with the effects, something like that.
So Brian.
Huh?
Brian, I was wondering to give an idea of what couple of nodes might be added. I was wondering, Todd sent you, I think earlier today, a list of a few articles that you had requested, and I'm wondering if you ingested those.
Not yet.
What's that? No. I mean, if you ingest them, they might lead to they might guide almost in the way that we were hoping that they guide to what new bubbles and what new circles actually get added in Todd's presentation.
I'm glad you asked, because now, audience, this was not a planted question, but let me just show you this thing on the screen right here. So I hope you're seeing my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I can do is, after I ingest Todd's documents, I will send you guys all. Okay, what I'll send. In fact, I can send you right now. This is not a proper link, but I'll send this to you to play around with. What is that? Okay, we probably don't have time during the session next week for me to show this. I would say, yeah, I would say, I would definitely say we definitely don't have time to show this, but I can send you this link. In fact, I can send it to you right now, so that you can reserve it and play with it offline. But let me just show you very quickly one quick thing, which is, yes, this one. Okay, so what you see on the screen here, these are the SDGs in red, the Sdg targets, right? And these are two of Todd's publications. Todd should recognize them. It's the stream water, nutrient, and organic carbon exports from tropical water catchments, and the other one, right? So what I can do is I can rerun this analysis using Todd's papers, and these are the terms, right, that you were talking about, Dan. These are the terms that came up. Although these are kind of low-level terms like ecosystem, fertilizer, fuel, weather. But yeah, there'll be some of these that pop up. But if you catch the URL in the chat window, you can actually play with this limited visualization on your own time. This visualization, this data set is limited to, I think I limited to, as you can see here, 24 nodes. So 24. So a 24 node graph, like what we might end up, at the end of, after Lindsay's talk, it's going to be a lot more neat than this representation, because this representation was a direct result of a database query, right? So it has not been cleaned up because it is what the database is there. So the graph that we come up with, like I said, after Lindsay's talk, will be a lot cleaner than this. But in terms of number of nodes, this is what we're looking at. And I'm going to stop sharing now. That's all I wanted to show.
Brian, the other two sessions, did you want to also say something about, or you already said something about the policy? This other discovery thing.
Sure. So I'm sharing my screen again. I hope I'm showing the right thing. Are you seeing the overview slide?
Not.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So this overview slide, just to give you a quick idea of what this session is about. So we're now on item number 2 of the agenda. Oh, come on. There we go. So as you can see here, this is the science in the U.S. government, where there's a contribution fit with the picture kind of thing, right? And just to, I won't go through the whole thing, of course. I'll just show you kind of the rough idea. So this is the overview. This is the kind of the rough idea of what we will talk about in that session, right? I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of NASA and actually ESIP. But the purpose of talking a little bit about NASA and ESIP is to look at some of the things that Congress had to do, and some of the things that the executive branch had to do in order to bring NASA to reality, right? So that's why there is a session about how NASA and ESIP came about. And then there is another section of the there's another section of the tutorial. So this is a tutorial where the audience is going to be asked to kind of play Minecraft, but Minecraft US government, Minecraft USG is like, the question is going to be asked, to the audience, look, if you had a pressing science and technology problem that you feel needs to be addressed, and if you were given the chance to, build a new government agency, what agency would you like to build? And so it's a kind of a thought experiment to get the audience going, right? So because they have heard how NASA was created and how ESIP was created, and so now it is the audience's turn to think about how they might create a different agency to do something that they feel needs doing. So, silly idea, but it could be anything as ridiculous as creating a Department of Data, for example, for the US government, right? So what would you like the Department of Data to do, and what are the things that, what are the barriers to you actually creating that Department of Data within the US government? And then I'm going to bring the audience through a couple of examples of science and technology and policy. One of the things that is, oh, by the way, before I go there, and we're going to have 2 kind of provocateurs, 2 other individuals who will be involved in like the Minecraft USG and all the Q&As. One of them is a retired EPA guy who has been a long time ESIP attendee. His name is Steve Young. So Steve is actually quite knowledgeable in some of the policies that the US EPA has been charged with. So Steve and Erika Virapongsi. So Erika works with community resilience issues. So Steve and Erika will be with us throughout this whole session during 3 of the spots where, it'll be Erika, myself, and Steve here at the Minecraft session and at these 2 Q&As to kind of provide questions and reflections on all the things that people have seen during the session, right? So it's going to be, I want to try to make it as interactive as possible. But after the Minecraft USG, we will have a science and technology and policy. Like we'll give an example of the U.S. Global Change Research Program. Where did it came from? What is the piece of law that allowed the U.S. Global Change Research Program to come about? And we're also going to go through an example where ESIP actually influenced a piece of law which is signed into law by President Obama. We actually had some success at introducing very small changes into the law, and so I'm going to show how we did that, and then a Q&A. And then for this section where we're going to dive into details, we're going to use the example of ozone, control of ozone concentration in the air under the Clean Air Act, and how the science, how as scientists, how as members of the public, and how if you are a member of the Science Advisory Board that advises EPA, how does that get input into EPA regulations, right? And so on and so forth. And then the last section, interface points, essentially is saying that I'm going to cover very, very briefly, like if you are a concerned citizen, as all of us are, or a concerned scientist, and you want to make sure that your voice is heard, these are some of the ways that typically scientists make their voices heard, and sometimes those mechanisms work well, sometimes they don't work quite so well. But anyway, we're going to go through that, and so that's the session at a very high level glance that I'm going to present. By the way, the reason why it is ag and climate relevant is during the ozone section, which is here. Now for the details, we're going to talk about ozone concentration. Of course, ozone concentration affects agricultural productivity. So we're going to mention that a little bit, and so that's a small tie-in into ag and climate. I've yet to develop the slides for this section. I've kind of developed the slides mostly for these sessions already. If I can, I will throw in something on the farm bill, but I'll see. I don't know how if I can throw something into if I can include the farm bill at this point in time. Bill? Yeah, so that's it. And let me just say a few things about the last the last section. The last item on the agenda is so another ESIP cluster, the discovery cluster, has invited us to demonstrate essentially what you see on the screen and what I've sent you over the chat. How the graph database is used to see the connections between different things. Now, what is not visible here in the graph that you see on the screen is this afternoon I started throwing additional data into the graph database. The additional data connects like a publication. Like on the screen, you see 2 publications, right? These are the ones that you co-authored, this red blob here and this red blob here. By the way, the size of the blob on the screen is directly related to the number of connections that the nodes have. So the more connections that the nodes have, the larger the size of the nodes, which explains why there's a bit of variation in the size of the nodes. Anyway, because the query that I posed to the database, it actually touches a lot of touches your publications taught, which is why your publications have a bigger nodes here in this representation. Anyway, for the other presentation to the discovery cluster, what I'm going to show is the result of a different query, which I've not run actually yet. But that query will link publications to data products. And that cluster, the discovery cluster, those guys are interested in looking for a way to connect data products to the intended use of that data product. And so I thought a way to try this out is to say, look, I mean, imagine, Todd, if you had like other grad students, you know, who are working for you, if they're working in roughly your areas of research, one way for them to kind of extend your work is to look at your papers and to see what data sets or data products your papers used. So imagine that there are, I mean, it's not visible here on the graph yet, but your papers will have some notes pointing out from your from your note, from your paper note to data products note. And so your students will be able to kind of get a rough feel as to what are the main data products that your publications use. And so that's what the discovery cluster in ESIP is kind of interested in using, in thinking about. And also at Goddard, where Bill's program, Bill Ting, the program that he helps to run, the data center, they are also interested in the same issue. So we're going to use the same technology, this graph technology, with a simple way of pulling out terms from documents to see the connections between publications and data products. And so for the data products, next week they'll be showing the data products are from Goddard Spaceflight Data Center. And it so happens that the Goddard Spaceflight Data Center, the specific data products that I'm looking at, GSFC, the Goddard Spaceflight Data Center, has actually curated what are the publications that have used these data products. So it makes my job very easy. So I've chosen the Goddard Spaceflight Data Center data sets to show next week. So that's item agenda number 3, and that's it. I'm going to shut up now. Bill?
That's all I have. Anybody has any questions or additional items?
So I guess I had a question. The last portion, Brian, that you were discussing, is that in context with, that's what's going to be presented in this ESIP session? Because I don't see, I see that as a slightly, it's definitely related to ESIP, but towards this session, I don't see the connection to between that and the 3 speakers. No reason.
Yeah, no. This graph, there'll be another ESIP cluster. It's the discovery cluster.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't catch where, and that's with Ruth Durr, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. I didn't catch where we transitioned out of the ag climate to the discovery session.
Yeah, no, you're right, because actually at first I wanted to show this visualization, but we don't have time during the carbon management session, because the graph that you see on the screen here was actually developed for the carbon management session, but I don't think we will have time. So I might show this graph if on a ESIP, one of our monthly con calls, if we can scratch out some time or whatever, we can do this at another time.
Okay, Megan mentioned she has some other things.
Yeah, first of all, Brian, we talked about you might make a short recording demoing one of these graphs. I don't know where that stands, but that's still an option at some point. The other thing is I just wanted to encourage the group to attend the Tuesday night collaboration area happy hour to be had at the winter meeting. I think it'll be a pretty social time, but I think it's a serious topic of wanting to work across these boundaries. And I know yours is one of the groups that is making an earnest effort to do that, and it would be wonderful to have you there. So please try to fit it in your schedule if you can.
Is Mike going to be giving us a tour of the bars wherever he's at? Mike, isn't he in charge of that part?
I don't want to give too much away. No, the Marine Data Cluster is technically hosting it, and probably emceed by Steve Diggs and a couple of others. But I did hear a rumor that Danny Kincaid will be serving as the bartender. So
Okay.
there's a lot to look forward to. I think there might even be an opportunity to come up with your cluster cocktail. But as I mentioned, serious business too.
Megan, what time is that next Tuesday?
It's at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, sorry, on Tuesday, 6 to 7:30. And I know that's late, but we've consolidated the meeting into just the 4 days this time around, so we're hoping people will protect the time if they can.
Okay, good. Quick question for Todd. The email address you sent me, is it a T at the beginning of it?
What was that? Ask that again.
The email that you just sent me, is it a T, the letter T at the beginning?
Oh, I don't remember.
What,
Let me look.
the Gmail address you sent me to.
Oh no, yeah, no, there's. Oh, I see. Yes, no, it's Odd Waters. I don't want to talk about it, but yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that wasn't like left out.
There's no T. Yes, it's a long story.
I did send a test email and nothing came back, so I
Okay,
assumed
good.
that.
Yeah, no, that's good because yeah, we can talk about this later.
Yeah. Okay.
One quick note, what you see on the screen here is another point that we're leveraging the stuff that that you saw in terms of the graph. This is one of the ESIP lab projects that Bill and I, and a couple of others you see here on the screen are involved in. So there's a poster that I'm going to submit. Megan, I'm almost finished. That I'm going to submit, but essentially, a lot of the stuff that you saw in the graph was actually started here in this project, and then I brought it over to do the carbon management stuff that you saw, and then we're going to propagate back the carbon management technologies back to this project. So there's a lot of to and fro, and we're going to, of course, show the same technology to Discovery Cluster. So there are multiple people who are going to be benefiting from this.
Okay, I got to jump off for another meeting. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Yeah,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. That's all I have. I think what Brian has too. So anybody else? Any last minute things?
We're good here. We will see you guys in a week.
Yeah, great.
Indeed.
Thanks, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.